What if I told you that Iran doesn't fear a U.S. attack on Kharg Island? What if the entire defensive buildup, the mines, the troops, the coastal missiles, isn't preparation for resistance, but an invitation? Right now, thousands of American assault troops are moving into the Persian Gulf. 2 Marine Expeditionary Units, elements of the 82nd Airborne, the most capable amphibious strike force on the planet, pointed at a small island off Iran's coast. And Iran is watching, waiting, almost hoping. But there's a reason military insiders are calling this the suicide mission of the decade. It's not about who wins the beach. It's about what the U.S. will be forced to give up the moment the first boot hits the sand. This is the Kharg Trap. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how it works, and what happens if Trump walks right into it. Kharg Island doesn't look like much on a map. 12 square miles, a few terminals, some pipelines. But here's what that island actually is. It's the financial heartbeat of the Iranian regime. Roughly 90% of Iran's oil exports flow through Kharg. Every tanker that leaves that island carries money that funds militias, missile programs, and the survival of the government in Tehran. So on paper, the logic is clean. Seize Kharg, strangle Iran's economy, end the standoff. Fast, decisive, a win. That's exactly what Tehran is counting on you to think. Because the moment U.S. forces hit that beach, Iran stops fighting a military war and starts fighting a political one. And that's a war they actually believe they can win. And before you think this is just theory, the forces being assembled right now are not there for a show of strength. A Marine Expeditionary Unit is not a diplomatic gesture. It's a self-contained assault force capable of seizing objectives from the sea with minimal warning. The 82nd Airborne can be wheels up and combat ready within 18 hours. When you put both of those forces in the same theater, pointed at the same island, you are not signaling. You are preparing. The only question is whether the people giving the orders understand what's waiting for them on the other side. Here's what's waiting for any force that tries to take Kharg. The approaches are mined. The landing zones are hardened. Coastal batteries are pre-sighted on the exact corridors any amphibious assault would have to use. Fast attack boats and small boat swarms can emerge from the coastline within minutes. And Iran has had decades to study exactly how the U.S. military moves, which means they know where to concentrate the pain. Defenders always hold the advantage on a fortified island. Short supply lines, local knowledge, and a simple mission: don't win, just bleed the attacker long enough for the cameras to start rolling. Because that's the real weapon here. Not the mines, not the missiles, the images. The moment American casualties start appearing on television, flag-draped coffins, wounded Marines, a mission that looked quick turning into something that doesn't end, the political clock starts ticking, and Iran knows it. This is asymmetric warfare at its most sophisticated. Iran cannot defeat the United States on a conventional battlefield, but they don't have to. They only need to make the cost of victory feel worse than the alternative. Now consider what Iran has actually built on and around that island. Open-source satellite imagery and regional intelligence reporting describe fortified firing positions placed along the most likely approach corridors. Obstacles designed to channel landing craft into kill zones. Underground infrastructure that survives airstrikes. None of this happened overnight. These are years of preparation, not for defense in the traditional sense, but for a specific kind of theater. A theater designed to produce images, casualties, doubt. Iran didn't build a fortress to hold Kharg forever. They built a trap designed to make taking it cost more than it's worth. And there's something else most analysts aren't talking about. Iran doesn't need to stop the assault to win. They just need the first 72 hours to look bad enough that the political pressure back home becomes unbearable. History shows that in modern democracies, public support for military operations doesn't erode slowly. It collapses. Suddenly, all at once. Iran has read that history. They're counting on it. So let's run the clock. What actually happens if the order is given? Hour 1. The first wave goes in. Air cover suppresses the obvious positions. Marines hit the beach. Paratroopers drop. Initial resistance is manageable. The operation looks like it's working. Hour 4. The second layer activates. Mines slow the advance. Positions that satellite imagery didn't catch open fire from unexpected angles. Casualty numbers start climbing. The pace slows. Hour 8. The images start leaking. Social media. Drone footage released by Iranian state media. A destroyed vehicle. Stretchers. The narrative begins to shift, not in Tehran, but in Washington, London, Riyadh. The question changes from, "Are we winning?" to, "Why are we still here?" They aren't trying to sink ships anymore. They're sinking public opinion. Hour 16. Political pressure builds faster than military progress. Allies start making phone calls. Congressional voices that were silent go on record. The same operation that was framed as decisive starts being framed as a quagmire. Iran hasn't won militarily, but they're winning the only battlefield that matters. Hour 24. The trap is fully closed. Every option now carries a price. Push forward and accept more casualties. Pull back and hand Iran a propaganda victory for a generation. Escalate wider and risk a regional war. De-escalate and watch Tehran declare they faced down the most powerful military on Earth. There is no clean exit. That was the design from the beginning. What makes this scenario particularly dangerous is the speed at which the information war moves compared to the physical one. A military commander can adjust tactics over hours. A political narrative, once it takes hold, is almost impossible to reverse. By hour 8, the story has already been written in 100 newsrooms and 10,000 social media posts. The military might still be advancing. But the war for public consent, the war that actually decides whether the operation continues, is already being lost. Iran understands this gap between battlefield time and political time better than almost any other state actor alive. They've been exploiting it since 1979, the Trump variable. Now here's where this gets specific to this moment, and why the title of this video names Trump directly. Any U.S. president faces this dilemma in the Gulf. But not every president has staked their entire political identity on being the leader who doesn't lose, doesn't back down, and hits harder than anyone expects. That's not a weakness, but Iran is treating it like a pressure point. If Trump orders the assault and it turns bloody, the domestic cost is immediate. Not from his base, they'll hold, but from the moderates and independents who accept toughness when it looks like strength, and abandon it the moment it starts to look like stubbornness. It's the ultimate strategic checkmate, and Iran didn't need a single nuclear weapon to set it up. If Trump doesn't order the assault, if he chooses airstrikes, sanctions, naval pressure, Iran spins that as retreat, as proof that maximum pressure has limits. As a win, they can sell at home and export to every proxy they fund. Either way, Iran captures the narrative. That is what a strategic trap actually looks like. Not a military ambush, a political one, engineered before the first shot is fired. There is a third pressure that rarely gets mentioned. The economic one. Global energy markets don't wait for military operations to conclude. The moment a conflict around Kharg becomes real, not speculated, real, oil prices spike. Supply chains tighten. Allies who depend on Gulf exports start calculating their own exposure. A president who built his brand on economic strength suddenly finds himself managing an energy crisis he triggered. Iran doesn't need to win the military engagement to inflict that damage. The uncertainty alone is enough. Every day the operation runs without a clean resolution is another day the global economy absorbs the cost. And that cost lands politically on the president who gave the order. 4 scenarios exist from here. The assault succeeds, at a cost that makes success feel like failure. The assault stalls, and becomes the story no one wanted to tell. The operation stays in the air and at sea, and Iran calls it a victory anyway. Or someone makes a phone call before the first Marine hits the water, and a deal gets done that nobody announces as a deal. Which one happens depends on decisions being made right now, in rooms we don't have access to, by people weighing options we can't fully see. But here's what we know. Kharg Island is not just a target, it's a test. A test of whether the most powerful military in the world can be outmaneuvered not by a stronger army, but by a weaker one that understood the rules of the game better. What history keeps showing us, from Beirut in 1983 to Mogadishu in 1993 to Fallujah in 2004, is that the side with superior firepower doesn't always control the outcome. The side that controls the narrative does. Iran has watched every one of those moments. They studied what broke political will, what turned the public, what made governments reverse course not because they were militarily defeated, but because the domestic cost became unbearable. Kharg is being built into that same kind of moment, a place where a tactical victory can be engineered to feel like a strategic disaster. Iran has been studying this moment for 40 years. The question is whether Washington has been studying it too. If this breakdown hit differently than what you usually see, subscribe. Because the next video covers something nobody is reporting yet. What Iran's actual fallback position looks like if Kharg does fall, and why it might be more dangerous than the island itself. Don't miss it.